between the realm of the dead and the journeys of the living. Join Josh, Jamie, and Elisa as they delve into the vast world of the paranormal and breathe life back into the history of the departed.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Elisa. And today we are going to start talking about the Highgate Cemetery. This one has an architectural design of just pure gold. Like, not gold in color, but it's like genius. Okay? It wasn't built to be spooky, but it was built to change how people viewed death. So, because back then it was scary. Death was like the end, nothing after, right?
Right.
And
I still think death for a lot of people is still scary, though.
oh, for 100%. But I think as time goes on, people's view of death changes a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when Stephen Gary and the landscape architect David Ramsey laid out the Highgate in 1839, they were working against a backdrop of pure horror. So London churchyards were overflowing, and they literally would have bones breaking through the soil, and gases from the decomposition were making people sick.
Oh, nasty.
Yeah. And so they were having issues with their cemeteries. And so with Highgate, they designed it so that it would be the exact opposite of that, and that it would be stunning and theatrical, you know, kind of an experience.
Right.
Versus just putting your people to rest and being done with it. So they created Highgate specifically. They had specific design choices and historical context that gave Highgate its unique haunting atmosphere. The Victorians invented the garden cemetery movement, so turning burial grounds into public parks. They planted weeping willows, yews, and exotic trees to create this romantic landscape, and it was explicitly designed for families to pack a picnic, stroll through the grounds, admire the scenery, which they wanted to like romanticize death versus it being a miserable, horrible experience.
Right. Which I can understand that.
Yes. But they go from one extreme to the next. And I wonder if it was hard for them to change that view a little. I don't know. I think it would be for me.
I mean,
because it wasn't gradual. It was just like, here's
boom,
macabre, and then
all of a sudden,
here's like
like first here's these bones poking out of the earth.
And gas.
And gases of decomposition. And then you get all this glorified, beautiful cemetery that you want to walk through.
And let's go pack a picnic.
Let's go
Let's go have a stroll and have some lunch.
I know, right?
I mean, not to say there aren't people today that go and have a picnic at the cemetery, but it's definitely not like high on most people's list of places to go have a picnic.
Well, I think when you think of a picnic, that's the last place you think of having one.
It is for me.
Yeah.
Not me. I actually used to do that all the time. I loved it.
Well, you know, but that's you.
But
yeah, you're weird.
You're just odd.
You're like ghosts or something.
I know. It's like a weird thing. But like, I love cemeteries for the fact that they're so peaceful.
You know, they really are.
Cemeteries are different than they were then, you know, when you're having overcrowded cemeteries versus now it's like you have a max and then they have to build a new one.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really do the same things that they did back then, where before it was like, here, let's just dig a hole and stick as many people as we can in these, you know, plots, where now it's like, okay, well, you got one or two people that you can stack on top of each other, but we're not really going to do anything beyond that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Josh and I like to stop at cemeteries.
They're
all three of us.
really,
we love stopping at cemeteries. It's just not the place where I would think to go have a picnic lunch.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Like on our road trips when we've stopped before.
Yeah.
Say like we stop and we're like, oh, we're a little hungry. Oh, I got some snacks in the car. I mean, before you long, you know, you're sitting there eating in a cemetery. So, I mean, it's like you're having a picnic. You're just not putting out the checkered blanket and the basket.
Yeah.
That's true.
But, you know.
I mean, there are some very peaceful and serene cemeteries.
Well,
sure.
look at the one in Wyoming.
Yes.
That we went.
Yes.
Like with all the deer and like, I really liked that cemetery.
That was really neat. That was a fun place.
Yeah.
So they created an environment where the living and the dead were meant to mingle in nature. This blurred the line between the two worlds and laid the perfect psychological groundwork for future ghost stories. In the 1830s, Britain was utterly obsessed with ancient Egypt, fueled by architectural discoveries and Napoleon's recent campaigns. I almost said champagnes. Campaigns. The Victorians viewed Egyptian culture as the ultimate masters of death and eternal preservation. To get to the top of the hill, visitors pass through a massive sunken stone archway flanked by heavy lotus-capped columns called the Egyptian Avenue. Because it's cut directly into the hillside, it naturally feels like entering a subterranean tomb or a literal underworld. At the end of the avenue sits a ring of 20 catacombs built around a massive pre-existing cedar of Lebanon tree called the Circle of Lebanon. The Victorians chose this layout specifically because the cedar tree symbolized eternal life in the Bible. It naturally casts a deep, permanent shadow over the stone vaults below. Highgate's architecture was designed to enforce Victorian social hierarchies even after death. The cemetery is built on a steep hillside, and where the wealthy were buried at the top of the hill in spectacular Gothic mausoleums closest to the light and the grand views of London. Deep inside the hillside, Gary built the terrace catacombs, which could hold over 800 bodies in small sealed recesses. To make it more dramatic, he added a hydraulic lift in the chapel above. A coffin would be lowered silently through the floor during a funeral service, disappearing into the dark earth below while the mourners watched. The architecture used a heavy dose of Gothic revival, pointed arches, spires, and intricate stone carvings. The Victorians loved picturesque design, which valued asymmetry, shadows, and a sense of awe. They deliberately designed the cemetery to age gracefully, but they didn't anticipate the financial collapse of the private cemetery system in the mid-20th century. When the maintenance money ran out in the 1960s, nature took over. The ivy swallowed the Gothic spires, roots, and cracked the Egyptian stone. And the intentional romantic shadows turned into catastrophic pitch-black labyrinth. So it goes from one extreme
to the next.
But you know what it makes me think of, though?
What?
Of The Last Crusade. When they break into the catacombs.
Underneath the church.
Underneath the church.
Yeah.
Because that's how they were buried in that mausoleum. They were just in those little alcoves in the...
Yep.
Which, I don't know, kind of makes sense.
I mean, 800 bodies.
I couldn't imagine.
That's not that much, though. I mean, it's when you think about it, like, think of the Paris catacombs.
Oh, for sure.
And that's thousands of bodies buried there.
Bones, yeah.
Well, bones now.
But they're arranged.
Yes, they are arranged in spectacular fashion, right? But even our modern day cemeteries have, in cases, well more than 800 people.
Depends on the cemetery, but yeah.
Yeah. Some have like thousands. Like if you look at the one in Louisville, I think it's the largest cemetery in the country, and that's got probably tens of thousands of people buried there.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. It's like, how do you plan for that? How do you plan for how many deaths?
I wouldn't even begin to know.
Because back then, people died way more than they do now.
Way more often. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like you look at all of the child graves.
Yeah, like the mortality rate for kids wasn't great.
No, it was terrible. You know, you see the cemeteries, and it's like one. You know, you can see the family plot. So it's like mom and dad, and then there's like 9 children, and you look at the ages, and it's like 0, 0, 2 months, 0.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
That's
whoa.
so sad.
Or toddlers.
Yeah.
It was not great for kids.
No. Yeah, but how do you plan for that?
Yeah, I don't know. So Victorian mourning culture is the ultimate backdrop. The Victorians didn't just grieve. They turned death into a highly regulated, deeply aestheticized, I don't know if you could say that right, lifestyle. So they made it like aesthetically pleasing, right? When Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, died in 1860, she entered a state of permanent mourning that lasted 40 years. The rest of the British society followed her lead. creating an intricate set of rules that dictated what you wore, how you acted, how you buried your dead at fashionable yards like Highgate. Mourning attire was strict, expensive, and legally enforced by social expectation. It was designed to visually signal a person's level of grief to anyone that passed you on the street. For a widow, the process lasted over 2 years and was broken into a rigid phase. The first was deep mourning. It was 1 year and 1 day. The widow wore solid black dresses made of like a heavy, dull silk I think it's called crepe, with crinkled texture that absorbed light instead of reflecting it, which I thought was interesting. I didn't ever think about it like that because I've seen it plenty in TV shows and movies or whatever, but for it to absorb the light instead of reflecting it, that makes sense because you're grieving and you're taking everything in.
Right.
She had to wear a heavy crepe veil over her face in public to isolate herself from the world. The second mourning was 9 months, and the heavy veil was lifted, and slight fabric textures like silk or satin were allowed, though the clothing remained entirely black. Half mourning, which was 6 months, the widow could finally introduce muted colors back into her wardrobe, specifically gray or lavender, mauve, and white. Crepe was heavily treated with chemicals like arsenic and copper to achieve its deep matte black color. It ruined easily in London's damp weather, staining the skin and giving off toxic fumes. Many widows actually suffered respiratory illnesses or skin conditions from their own mourning clothes.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's awful. Not only are you mourning, all of a sudden you have this crap on your face.
Right.
Like, it's like stained black, and then you got like...
Then you have respiratory issues
You
and
can't
illnesses.
breathe.
And this is why widows died within 2 years of their husbands.
It wasn't because their heart was broken. It's because their dang mourning dresses were
Killing them.
full of arsenic. Because photography was still a luxury and child mortality rate was high, keeping physical pieces of the deceased was a vital comfort. The Victorians took the concept of memento mori, which means remember you must die, to a highly tactile level. Hair does not decompose, making it the most perfect symbol of eternal life. Locksmiths and jewelers would take hair from the deceased and intricately weave into bracelets, watches, chains, brooches, and rings. Families would hire photographers to take their final portrait of their deceased loved one. The dead were often posed on couches, tucked into beds, or arranged with family members to look as if they were merely sleeping. So families hired professional mourners called mutes, which I didn't know about this. These men stood outside the deceased house and walked ahead of the hearse to Highgate, dressed in black capes and top hats, looking completely miserable. The glass hearse was pulled by black horses wearing massive arrangements of dyed black ostrich feathers. If you were poor, you had fewer horses and fewer feathers. If you were rich, the display was extravagant. Though dying out by the late Victorian era, some rural areas and early Victorian traditions still utilized a sin eater. This was a poor person who paid a small fee to eat a piece of bread and drink ale over the corpse, symbolically absorbing the dead person's sins so that their soul could rest.
Interesting. I have never heard of anything like that.
I had neither.
Like, that's a new one on me.
I haven't heard that, but it makes sense, though, because it's bread and wine.
Yeah, it's like the sacrament.
Exactly. That's exactly what they were doing. They were essentially doing the sacrament over the corpse to absolve the corpse of sin.
Interesting.
Kind of like their way of taking the sacrament, maybe.
Yeah.
Like their last repentance. Because that's what the sacrament is for, is to help you with repentance, right?
Right.
So that makes sense that somebody would do that as like their last token. And maybe that can kind of turn it from like a creepy version to a more like sanctified version of dying, taking the sacrament over the body as a symbol of like cleansing them from any sin that they may have done from the last time they took the sacrament.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just, it's a weird job.
Yeah.
So
And they're paid to do it.
So what's your job? I'm a sin eater.
Well, like I used to say when
what now?
I know when people used to ask me what I did for a living before I had my kids, I said I suck spit for a living.
Oh
Because that
my
was the dental
goodness.
assistant.
Oh.
I'm like,
That's
I
great.
spit.
Probably got some weird looks to explain to yourself, huh?
Right?
The Victorians were deeply superstitious, and many cemetery traditions were rooted in a primal fear of the dead returning. The moment someone died in a house, every mirror was covered with black cloth so that the deceased soul wouldn't get trapped in the reflection. Clocks were stopped at the exact moment of the death to ward off bad luck and signal that time that had ended for the departed. Coffins were always carried out of the house and down the paths of the Highgate, feet first. This was done so that the corpse couldn't look back at the house or the living and tempt another family member to follow them into the grave. Monuments at Highgate were covered in a visual code. A broken column meant a life cut short. An upside-down torch meant a life extinguished, but with the flame burning upward to symbolize that the soul's ascending. And carved ivy meant undying remembrance. So here are the known haunts that have been at Highgate. Because of the sheer volume of common graves and dense overgrowth, the cemetery isn't usually haunted by a specific named ghost tied to a single tombstone. Instead, there are specific type of apparitions that are constantly spotted in very particular zones of the graveyard. There is an entity in the catacombs and vaults. Witnesses claimed that this creature, described as a tall, dark, gliding silhouette over 7 feet tall with hypnotic, piercing eyes, predominantly loitered near the terrace catacombs and the Circle of Lebanon. Locals believe the entity was a medieval European nobleman who practiced black magic and was brought to England in a coffin by followers before Highgate was even built. Encounters here almost always involve a sudden, unnatural drop in temperature, and multiple witnesses in the 70s claimed that their watches and clocks completely stopped the moment they felt the entity's presence.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. It would be interesting is if their watches stopped at the same time.
Like if you had a watch and I had a watch and they stopped at the same time?
No, so multiple people are over the time have been there. Do their watches always stop at like 3:25?
Oh, I see.
Like the time of their death.
That would be really interesting
Wouldn't
to
it?
see.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Road trip. Okay. You say this every
We're
time.
driving.
we're driving over there. Okay, well,
They said it's just a pond. We should be able to drive over a pond, right?
across the pond.
In the sunken pathways, one of the most frequent terrifying sightings is a frantic female spirit called the Mad Mother, who sprints frantically between the overgrown tombstones. This haunting doesn't happen on the neat paved paths. It happens deep within other sections of the West Cemetery, where the terrain is uneven and heavily sunken. That's where I get kind of creeped out, is when they're all sunken.
So
yeah,
like,
collapsed graves.
yeah.
Mhm.
So like when the coffins break down.
I feel like that gives like an extra creepy vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me,
it totally
anyways.
would.
Because Highgate was built on a steep hill, decades of rain, mudslides, and massive tree roots have shifted the earth. Tombstones lean at impossible angles, and some stone slabs have cracked open completely choked by ivy. It creates a catastrophic labyrinth landscape where you can't see what is around the next corner until you step into it, which I've seen the pictures, and that's legit.
Oh, so there will be pictures.
I hope so.
So here's a ghost encounter of the Mad Mother. This account is based on a report from October 1971 involving a local college student named Lydia Vance, who was a photographer enthusiast. She snuck into the West Cemetery late one afternoon to capture the way the autumn light hit the decaying Gothic vaults. It was just past 5 p.m., right as dusk was setting. Lydia had wandered off the main path of the West Cemetery, deep into a section where the graves are completely choked by overgrown ivy and massive knotted tree roots. The light was fading fast, casting long distorted shadows across the leaning stone crosses. Lydia stopped to adjust her camera lens when she noticed an unsettling shift in the environment. The distant hum of North London traffic suddenly stopped. The birds in the canopy above went entirely silent. She described it as entering an acoustic vacuum. a pocket of absolute suffocating stillness where even her own breathing sounded too loud. Immediately following the silence, a heavy, overpowering smell filled the air. It wasn't the smell of a standard autumn decay, it was the rich, pungent scent of freshly upturned wet earth and stagnant water, as if a deep trench had just been dug right next to her. A violent, frantic scratching sound scattered the silence. It sounded like someone aggressively ripping thick vines off stone and digging their bare fingernails into the hard mud. Lydia turned toward the sound. Bursting through the thicket of yew trees was a woman. She was dressed in a tattered, filth-streaked Victorian mourning dress, but she had no veil. Her face was gaunt, and her hair, long silvery gray, flew wildly in the direction as if caught in a localized gale. The woman didn't look at Lydia. Her bloodshot, manic eyes were locked entirely on the ground. She sprinted with a terrifying, jerky, unnatural speed between the headstones. She dropped to her knees in front of a nameless cracked stone slab, violently clawing at the dirt and the ivy covering it, sobbing hysterically. Terrified, Lydia dropped her camera and tried to back away, but she tripped over a tree root. Hearing the noise, the entity abruptly stopped digging. She snapped her head toward Lydia. Her expression wasn't one of malice or anger, it was pure, unadulterated, wide-eyed horror. The entity lunged forward, sprinting directly at Lydia. Lydia shielded her face, expecting a violent collision. Instead, the moment the figure reached her, the woman's form instantly dissolved. A violent, freezing blast of wind swept over Lydia, dropping the temperature so severely that her breath misted in the air. The sound of the woman's frantic sobbing echoed inside Lydia's ears for several seconds after the air went still. When Lydia later developed her film from that evening, the photos she took right before the encounter were completely ruined. The negatives showed intense light bleed and strange smoke distortions across the frames. Despite her camera functioning perfectly before and after she entered that specific section of the cemetery. Lydia escaped physical injury, but she reported that the freezing air that passed through her left a distinct emotional residue. She experienced a profound, overwhelming wave of grief and nausea that lasted for hours after leaving the cemetery gates.
Okay, that would be very disturbing.
Right?
That would freak anybody out.
It's like a zombie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how much you've investigated or how much you love ghost hunting and all of that stuff. That would creep anyone out.
Yeah, and it's that story, that's something that will stay with you. If you went through that, that would stay with you.
Making eye contact is a whole different experience.
Well, yeah, it was eye contact.
Intelligent eye contact is the thing.
It was eye contact and then recognition and then movement.
Wow. No thanks.
Yeah, nope. So this ghost encounter is of Swan's Lane. Imagine walking home between two walls holding 170,000 corpses. The air drops 20 degrees, and before you can run, something solid, dark, and 7 feet tall steps out of the brickwork and knocks you flat on your back. That wasn't a campfire story. That was a report filed to London police and local newspapers in the winter of 1970.
Wait, did you say 170,000?
Yep.
That's a lot of bodies.
Like I said, how do you freaking plan for that? That's a lot of bodies.
You just stack them make buildings out of them, I guess.
You just wing it.
Dig really, really deep holes.
Corpse condo.
That's a new name for him.
We're going to the corpse condo.
Instead of catacombs, we're going corpse condos. So Swain's Lane, this is a deeply recessed, incredibly narrow and steep road that slices directly between the west and the east sections of Highgate Cemetery. On either side of the asphalt, you are boxed in by towering, weathered Victorian stone walls topped with rusted iron gates. It sounds gorgeous to me.
Very Gothic sounding.
Yes, which I love. Towering trees from the inside of the graveyard's canopy over the lane, blocking out the moonlight. Even today, it feels like a claustrophobic, damp, and completely cut off from the rest of London. The encounter took place late one night in the winter of 1969-1970. A local man was walking home, taking a shortcut up the steep incline of Swains Lane, right alongside the outer wall of the West Cemetery. As the man walked up the hill, the normal city sounds of London completely vanished. I feel like there's a common theme. The air grew intensely, unnaturally cold, a classic sign of a localized drop in thermal energy. He reported a sudden, overwhelming psychological weight, describing a feeling of intense dread and the distinct sensation of being watched from behind the stones. Looking ahead, he witnessed a tall, dark, featureless shadow manifest seamlessly out of the solid gray bricks of the cemetery wall. It didn't walk. It glided smoothly across the narrow pavement toward him, completely silent. Unlike typical ghost stories where phantoms pass through a person, this entity had a physical force. As it intersected with the man, he was violently shoved backwards. The impact was strong enough to throw him completely off his feet and knock him flat onto the cold asphalt of Swains Lane. Paralyzed with fear on the ground, the man watched the towering shadow loom over him. Just as the encounter reached its most terrifying point, a car turned the corner at the bottom of the hill. The moment the vehicle's high beam headlights swept over the lane and illuminated the man's body, the dark entity instantly dissolved into a thick, localized patch of gray mist, which quickly drifted away through the iron bars of the cemetery gate. I've seen that gray mist before, especially like in pictures, in places that we've been to, and we've taken pictures and you see that gray mist or whatever.
Yeah.
But to go from an apparition to a gray mist,
that's interesting.
That is interesting to me.
I'd like to see that.
But I also wonder if it's because when it's so cold over there and you have moisture and it turns misty and there is a lot of fog and stuff there, if it's easier to see that.
Oh.
I wonder if the atmosphere, because it's different, makes it easier.
That's interesting.
Because we have really dry where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be hard to
create a fog
and create a mist.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Something to think about. So this encounter is at the front gates. Late one evening in January 1970, a motorist was driving past the imposing perimeter of Highgate Cemetery. As he neared a massive ornamental iron gate of the West Cemetery, his car engine unexpectedly sputtered, lost all power, and completely died. The headlights flickered out, plunging the car and the narrow lane into near total darkness. Stepping out of the vehicle into the freezing night air to inspect the engine, the driver was instantly hit by an unnatural localized drop in temperature. It wasn't just cold, it was bone-chilling, dead cold, that seemed to instantly fog up the car's windshield. He reported that the ambient sounds of the city disappeared, replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence. Sensing he was being watched, the driver looked away from the open hood of his car and turned toward the towering, rusted iron gates of the cemetery. Standing just inches behind the iron bars, completely inside the graveyard grounds, was a towering, shadowy figure. The entity was tall, dark, silhouette, wrapped in what looked like to be a heavy cloak or shroud. It had no distinct facial features, save for one terrifying detail. 2 dull, burning crimson eyes that glowed from within the shadow. The eyes weren't casting like light in a flashlight. They were hypnotic, deep red, that locked into the driver's gaze. The moment the driver made eye contact with the entity, he was struck by a wave of pure, irrational terror that physically paralyzed him. He reported being entirely unable to move his legs, call out for help, or even look away. He felt an intense psychological pressure, describing it as if the entity was draining the life or willpower right out of him through the iron bars. The encounter lasted for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only for a few minutes. The hypnotic hold was suddenly broken when another vehicle turned the corner at the far end of Swains Lane. The sweeping headlights hit the iron gates, and the red-eyed ghoul instantly dissolved into darkness of the graveyard trees. The driver's physical paralysis broke immediately, and he scrambled back into his car, terrified, until help arrived.
Okay, a few minutes, that's a long time. Usually you say what felt like minutes, but it was really just seconds.
I know, right?
But this felt like an eternity, but in reality was minutes. But minutes
So
it's a long time
Yeah.
for something like that.
So I have a couple questions on this one because you know how EMF spikes
Yes.
Yep.
drain batteries,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a car battery. That's quite the amount of energy,
It's
a lot.
a lot of energy.
which could induce how long it was.
Oh, that's true. It had more energy.
It had more energy
to go off of.
to go longer.
Yeah.
So I've had an experience where it felt like my energy was getting sucked out of me. It really reminded me of Harry Potter.
Right.
When the Deathly Hollows or whatever, those things come and suck your...
Death Eaters.
Death Eaters. They
Yeah.
come and suck the life out of you.
Mhm.
Dementors.
Dementors.
That's it.
Every Harry Potter fan is like, you idiots.
You got it wrong. How dare you?
But that's what it felt like. And instantly I was like, nope. Not allowed to do that. But that's really what it feels like. And it kind of feels very similar to when you're passing out, that kind of like tunnel vision.
Yeah.
So when this person described that, I was like, oh, that's exactly what this feels like. I know what they're talking about. And to have that go on for that long,
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
I wonder how much longer this person lived.
Right?
You
Right.
know?
Like it took everything.
Like the Dementor is sucking the life out. How long does it last?
Because it wasn't just like seconds, it was minutes.
Well, the interesting thing is he was driving his car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you're driving your car, you're not running off your battery, you're running off the alternator.
That's right.
So if it pulled that power plus the battery power,
It had a lot of power.
that's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be able to manifest one, which is huge,
Yeah,
which would take a lot of energy.
In itself.
And
Yeah.
two, drain this other guy's energy for how long?
Minutes.
I mean, it could possibly be 30 seconds, which
Yeah.
felt like eternity,
Sure.
Yeah.
which they probably thought was minutes. Because reality is, I don't know if I've ever seen any encounter that lasts.
Yeah, I think in all reality, it probably was seconds.
Yeah.
But it was probably quite a few seconds.
Yes.
But it probably in reality was not minutes.
I would say probably no more than a minute
Yeah.
in reality.
Or close to a minute, but,
But in,
not.
like,
Yeah.
in the world of the paranormal, a minute is like an eternity.
Oh, yeah. Especially
Depending on
when
what's
you're-
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. In any sense where you're seeing an apparition, to see it for more than a split second is huge.
Yeah. Big time.
But-
Every investigator's dream.
Right? But the interesting thing is this entity has been now seen theoretically at the gates, on a path, and in the catacombs.
Yeah.
Because they describe it all as the same thing.
Yep. The
Yeah.
sound goes away.
It's
Well, even-
7 feet tall.
But this other one was a
huge-
woman.
Right. I'm not talking about her, but like
Yeah.
on the path between the two,
Yeah.
in the catacombs, and now at
Mhm.
the front gate.
Yeah.
It almost sounds to me like a Undertaker.
Yeah. But I also find it interesting that even with the woman, that it's still similar. The encounters are similar with like what leads it up to it, where the sound goes away.
Right.
Yeah, because
Like-
there's some sort of disturbance and everything goes quiet.
Well, and it kind of makes me wonder if, and I know I'm just totally throwing this out there, but what if it's kind of like a time change? You know what I mean? Like, so what if you're kind of experiencing what it was back then, back
Yeah.
in 1870s,
Right.
60s, 50s, whatever.
Yeah, almost like, yeah. I mean, I almost it's almost like a stone tape. But see, I've had this happen to me before, where the noise of what I was doing was replaced by something else.
Right.
Except it wasn't silence; it was
But I wonder
A
if
restaurant.
that's like the spirit locking in on you and kind of bringing you into their,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
bringing back to their time zone,
or
bringing you into their
just back
environment.
to their what's their reality.
Yeah.
Right.
What they experience, what they hear,
Versus-
what they...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a way of psychic projection.
Maybe.
Like, you're still in normal time.
Yes.
I'm not saying that you're getting taken back to the 1800s, but
no, but you're
experiencing it the way that they experienced.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which would make sense because I'm sure in 1800, 1830, 40, whatever it would have been, it would have been quiet and peaceful.
Well, yeah. And also, though, whenever, I should say, when I've had some experiences where I hear a spirit, I actually audibly hear something that's directed to me.
Right.
My ears will ring or like sound goes completely silent. It like I'm deaf to everything else, but then I hear the audible spirit speaking, like I hear the audible voice. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that also has correlation to this where the sound just everything stops.
Yeah.
I really want to know the physics of this. Like, how does that happen? Like,
it would be really fascinating and interesting to
like what is the scientific reasoning of this?
It would be so hard to study though, because you'd have to
do it right when it happens. Like, how do you do that?
You'd have to have someone you'd be monitored. You'd have to have a environment that is completely controlled and have a spirit
do it on cue.
Do it in a manner that you can actually like monitor.
All I can say is good luck.
Right.
Because that would be quite the undertaking.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the haunting of the nun.
Ooh,
because we love a good ghost nun. The apparition known as the melancholic nun or the shrouded figure is perhaps the most quintessentially Gothic ghost in Highgate Cemetery. Unlike the aggressive entities or the chaotic energy of the Mad Mother, this spirit represents absolute stillness and profound echoing sorrow. This account comes from August 1973. It was reported by an art student named Arthur Pendleton, who was exploring the West Cemetery just as the evening gates were preparing to close. Arthur was walking near the older, heavily shaded Victorian plots when he noticed a figure standing near a massive moss-covered Gothic monument. The figure was a woman clad in long, dark, heavy habit or shroud. Her head was bowed, and she was staring intensely down at a specific, nameless grave. Arthur initially thought it was a living woman in mourning, or perhaps one of Highgate's famous lifelike stone statues that had been stained dark by time and rain. As Arthur watched, he realized something was wrong. The summer evening had a light breeze, and that was visibly rustling the leaves on the oak trees and moving the tall grass at her feet. Yet, the woman's dark habit and heavy veil remained completely unnaturally frozen. It didn't stir a single millimeter in the wind. Intrigued and slightly uneasy, Arthur decided to step off the path to see if she needed help. This is when the encounter defied the laws of physics. She was roughly 15 feet away from him. He took 3 large steps forward, and when he looked up, she was suddenly 30 feet away. Confused, Arthur quickly quickened his pace, taking several hurried steps toward her, and he looked up again, and she was now 60 feet away. Standing on a completely different ridge further up the hillside, still locked in the exact same bowed posture, she hadn't walked or glided away. The physical space between them had simply expanded. Realizing he was dealing with something paranormal, Arthur stopped dead in his tracks. The moment he stopped moving, the entity finally reacted. She slowly lifted her head. Her face was completely obscured by a featureless, pitch-black shadow beneath her crown. She didn't look at Arthur. Instead, she tilted her head all the way back, staring directly up at the gray evening sky. A profound, heavy wave of intense sorrow washed over the clearing. Arthur described it as a sudden, crushing feeling of hopelessness that made his chest ache. A sharp, localized drop in temperature hit him, freezing the sweat on his neck. Without a sound, the dark silhouette of the nun began to fade, thinning out until she became entirely transparent, leaving nothing behind but the empty stone monument. In most ghost stories, spirits walk, glide, or float away from the witness. This nun is famous for spatial displacement. She doesn't travel through the cemetery, she seems to bend the witness's perception of distance. The closer that you try to get to her sorrow, the further the universe pushes you away. Highgate is full of Victorian art depicting grieving, shrouded women. Some researchers believe that the nun might actually be a tulpas, or a thought form, an entity created out of a collective grief of thousands of Victorian mourners who visited these very statues over a century, animating the stone's image into a permanent, tragic, spectral loop.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
You could see it being a tulpa.
Yeah.
You could. Because the women were going to be wearing that same type of attire.
Right.
And so, and if there were that many bodies being buried that often, there would have always been somebody in black.
Yeah.
Well, and also it's like if you, like how people say that they can create something, you know, like we talk about specific ghosts that aren't real, but people have created and that has actually come to life, is a tulpa.
Right.
So this could be very similar to that, where it's just more naturally been created versus someone wanting it to come to life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, difference between intention, right? Like
Right.
One is, I want this thing to be around, so we're going to put our energy into it, versus just happenstance because there were just that many people there having a shared
Energy experience.
Yeah.
Where there's so much mourning going on. I can imagine that. And I mean, energy is created. It can't be taken away. So it's got to go somewhere.
Yep.
Right.
So who's to say that doesn't happen?
Yeah, energy doesn't just dissolve and go away.
Nope.
Just disperses.
Changes form.
Yep.
Interesting to think about. That's why it's like when I die, I have so many questions. Like, I want to know all these things.
Don't we all? I mean,
so many questions.
One day we'll find out.
Right? I mean, that's why we've asked the questions, what's behind the veil? And the answer is always, I can't tell you.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a reason for that.
So this one is probably the most interesting one to me, and this is the last one. So this is the concert pianist's grave. The grave of Harry Thornton in the East Cemetery is a massive favorite for paranormal investigators because it shifts the focus from a visual horror to an auditory haunting. Instead of seeing a terrifying phantom, witnesses hear this haunting. Harry Thornton was a celebrated classical concert pianist. During World War I, he and his wife toured relentlessly, entertaining British troops to keep up the morale. He survived the war, but was tragically killed in 1918 by the global Spanish flu pandemic. His grieving wife commissioned a highly unusual Grade II listed monument for him, a life-size stone replica of a grand piano. The most famous detailed account of this musical echo comes from November 1979, reported by a cemetery volunteer named Julian Croft. It was late November, around 4:45 p.m. The East Cemetery had just closed to the public for the evening, and Julian was doing a final sweep of the pathways to ensure that no strangers were left behind before locking the gates. A freezing damp dusk was falling, and a heavy London mist was hanging low over the headstones. As Julian neared the older, quieter section of the Eastern Cemetery, the silence was broken by the unmistakable sound of a piano. It wasn't loud or abrupt, it was deeply sorrowful, intricate classical piece, later identified by Julian as a movement from Puccini. Coincidentally, lines from Puccini are carved onto Thornton's grave. Julian initially assumed a nearby house outside the cemetery walls had a window open and someone was practicing. But as he kept walking, the music didn't fade. It got louder. He traced the sound away from the perimeter wall and deep into the grid graves. The music led him directly to a plot of Harry Thornton. Julian stood right in front of the life-size stone grand piano, and the sound was coming directly from the monument. Julian knelt down, placing his ear just inches from the damp stone keys of the sculpture. In his official account, he stated with absolute certainty that that music wasn't coming from the air around him. It was vibrating upwards through the soil, echoing out of the hollow space between the earth beneath the stone piano. The moment Julian realized the music was subterranean, a severe localized drop in temperature hit the plot. His breath turned to thick plumes of vapor, and a layer of frost rapidly formed over the stone piano keys right before his eyes. The music didn't fade out naturally. It reached a crescendo and then abruptly stopped mid-chord, as if a hand had been suddenly smashed down or lifted from the keyboard in frustration. The moment the music died, the heavy silence of the graveyard slammed back into place, and Julian scrambled back to the main path to lock the gates. On the side of Harry Thornton's stone piano, his wife had a line from Puccini's grave, or engraved, "Sweet thou art sleeping, safe in God's keeping, while I must weep apart." Interestingly, the specific melody witnessed reporting hearing over the decades matched the operatic tones of the very music inscribed on the stone. Thornton's haunting carried zero malice. Witnesses don't report feeling intense panic, dread, sickness. Instead, they describe a profound, peaceful solemnity. In a classic example of a living imprint, a man who spent his final years using music to comfort terrified soldiers in the trenches, continuing to play his instrument deep beneath the London fog. Highgate can be a terrifying place, full of screaming mothers and red-eyed phantoms. But if you walk the East Cemetery at dusk, you might find a different kind of ghost. One that reminds us that long after our voices fade, the things we loved in life sometimes keep playing in the dark.
Oh, see now, that's one I'd want to go see.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd probably just go sit by his,
Yeah.
by the piano and just, I'd probably sit there all night and just wait.
Oh yeah, that's why I'd have my picnic.
Yeah. What better place?
Put a recorder out there and see if you can capture any music.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
It would be interesting because like put the recorder out, put a geophone down, put other pieces of equipment to see if not only are you getting the sound of music, but the vibration of the piano creating the music.
Yeah.
And see if you can correlate all of that together.
That'd be so cool.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
It definitely. So is that place open to the public? Because there seems to be mention of like locked gates and like unlawfully entering after hours type of deal.
It sounds like a lot of these bigger cemeteries where they're open a certain time of day.
Well, I know from what I've read is that they do tours in certain parts of the cemetery, so which leads me to believe that certain parts are open and certain parts are closed. There is another very prominent haunting that happens there, but we will talk about that in a different episode.
Oh.
But, and that has been closed off because of so many people coming in and vandalizing it. And
jeez.
So it just ruins it for everyone. We've talked about that, how frustrating that is.
Yeah, you wankers, knock it off.
Exactly.
But it's been on a lot of like ghost hunts and things like that. So it's a popular one for over there, but only one that now you can get to if you take a tour. So like, I think part of it is open and part of it is closed, but I think a lot out there too. Like when I went to Scotland, I mean, this is in England, mind you, but when I went to Scotland, these places are always opened.
Right.
The gates are always opened, and you can go anytime to admire this Gothic style cemetery.
Which is amazing and wonderful.
Right.
I loved it.
But unfortunately, if vandalism was to start happening there, I'm sure that at some point
they'd
be forced to.
They would force, yeah.
Well, and I also wonder too if it wasn't because of like the danger to the public. Like the west side was, there's sunken spots and hidden areas. Like it's like not exactly a place that you could easily traverse and probably easily get hurt if you're not careful.
Well, and then
Sure,
they're
but-
liable for it.
Right, but wouldn't they just tell you to stay on the paths then? I mean, that would be my thought if it was just due to sunken graves.
Right.
Just stay on the main paths. Don't go.
I'll go.
Well, I
off
think
of
it's a lot
those.
of it is overgrown too.
So it's not being really
So
maintained.
I don't know how well taken care of the paths are in certain areas.
Right.
But yeah.
One way to find out is to go there.
I'm ready.
Let's get in the car. Let's go.
Cross the pond.
Our aquatic car.
Hey, we can get an aqua car.
And let's go see the corpse condos.
Let's take the aqua car across the
pond
ocean.
to see the corpse condos. Oh my goodness.
We've been in the car for 2 months. I think we're lost.
Oh my.
Oh, that'd be so much fun to see, though. So neat. And you got to wonder, though, too, is they were the first to kind of create this park-esque nature of a cemetery. So is that where we got the tradition now to create? Because if you think about the way our cemeteries are laid out, most of the municipal cemeteries are the same way. It's like being in a park.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I went out east, kind of by we just talked about it.
Gettysburg.
Oh my gosh. All I could think of was guns. I was like,
The Bang Bang place.
the pew pew.
It's the Pew Pew place.
And when we went over there, we went to a park that had like catacombs in it. And it's basically it was a hill, just a little hill. It wasn't anything crazy or out of the ordinary. And in it, there were these holes that were probably like 4 feet by 2 feet.
It's small.
With tons of bodies inside.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, and that was like ground level. And then you look in there and it's like way deep. And there was tons of bodies in there and there were rats coming out of there. It was nasty. And from what I heard was that sometimes they'll bring like a finger bone out.
Ah.
You know, like it was kind of gross. Anyways, but there were, I don't know, 15, 20 of these pockets of these little catacomb-ish burials that you could see. They were dead on. It's not like they were like laying in the ground. Like the doors were like facing you so that you could open it up as you're like kneeling on the ground.
Yeah.
So it was I'd never seen anything like that. But you can see as it's come across America that the cemeteries have changed. And as the cemeteries have gotten newer, the design has changed. But yeah, I wonder if it started with this idea of this parkish cemetery.
Right.
And it slowly turns into ones that they're not super crowded when we have a ton of land compared to over there, which makes a huge difference.
Right.
Yeah, it does make a huge difference in that avenue.
Yeah.
But in the same token, though, like, it makes sense because you're talking 1836,
This was like 1860.
Right. So, the founding of the country, 1776. Yeah, so that makes sense that we'd have the same transition of cemetery, that the old colonial cemeteries were more just put it in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then it moved as well because the immigrants came over.
Yeah.
So those traditions would have came with them.
And I
kind of
think
reflect into some
Into our
things over
culture
here.
here, yeah.
And as they move out west, have it be more park-like, more.
Yeah. But they're still like, and that's the other thing too. Like if you look out east, like Philadelphia, Washington,
Right.
stuff like that, or Washington D.C., Boston, they have a lot of Gothic style cemeteries.
Yeah.
And then you come out west, and they're very, for the most part, plain.
Oh, very, very plain compared to what it was out in Scotland, England, over there, there's a huge difference in styles. But I think that, here there wasn't a discrepancy between rich and poor as much as it is or was over there, where it's like, or the rich is going to be buried on the top of the hill by the sun where the light can hit and you can have the view. They're dead, like they don't care about the view, but whatever. And then the poor people are down below in the dark and dank parts of the cemetery.
Right.
The hidden parts of the cemetery. Where here, it's not, we don't have those discrepancies really. I mean, you have tombs or monuments that are more extravagant than others, but they're all blended in with people who don't have as much money.
Yeah, you could have someone who was a billionaire buried next to someone who had no money at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their plot is their headstone is just in the ground.
Yeah.
A flat little headstone.
Yeah, that's true. That we don't have the aristocracy that
not at all
that Britain and the European countries do. So that makes sense.
I mean, I think you have sections where, more wealthier people would buy their plots and then stick a little fence around it or something. But that's pretty much as big as it gets. Yeah,
those were usually like family plots, right? Like this is the family tomb, so to speak.
Right. But as for, you guys get the left side of the cemetery and the rich people get the right side of the cemetery. Like it doesn't work like that.
I mean, there were paupers' graves for those people who couldn't afford burial. But those are still not the same as the stuff that was going on in Britain at the time.
Right.
So, would you visit?
100%.
No doubt.
It'd be hard not to, right?
It would. It would be very hard not to.
So, for all of our friends and listeners overseas and over in Great Britain, have you been to the cemetery? Have you had any experiences there? Let us know. And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps.
The Victorians were deeply hold on.
They were super spittious. Super spitting.
Super spittus.
Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.